Welcome to Oh My Menses, a digital space dedicated to all things menstruality, periods, hormones, and cycle-informed living. Join me, Karinda, naturopath and fertility educator, as we explore topics that we probably don't hear about enough. From stories of menarche, birth control, and common period problems to menstrual shame, sex, fertility, and the moon, if it's about the human female experience, I probably talk about it. This is a place of sharing, remembering, learning, and unlearning, where we come together and reclaim our cyclical power. So sit back, relax, let's all connect with our wombs, and remember our brilliant cyclical nature. Hello! Thank you for joining me in this space. Thank you for tapping on this episode and going, yeah, I want to hear about this. I'd like to hear Karinda talk today. I really appreciate you being here. And I wanted to start off with the cycle check-in, and I just realized I don't have my phone next to me. So let me go grab that. Okay, phone is at the ready, but also you don't need your phone next to you at all times, just in case you usually do. It's okay to be away from your phone. And I'm telling that to myself as well. So today I would love to talk to you about the current cycle that I am experiencing and how you can stay connected to cyclical living and menstrual cycle awareness when your cycle's playing funny buggers with you, when it's a little bit irregular, when there's an imbalance, when you don't know when your period's coming and you don't know if you've ovulated and you don't know what phase you're in, and it just all feels quite confusing. So I want to share some tips around that, and I'll do my cycle check-in now because it's going to put the episode into a lot more context. So I am pulling up Read Your Body on my phone. I am on cycle day 36 and I'm just looking at my chart now. That takes a little bit to load. So cycle day 36. And I think the first thing that you may be thinking is like, that's a long cycle. Shouldn't you have your period by now? Or aren't you pregnant? Or like, what's going on? And I guess I want to start off by saying I'm not pregnant. And yeah, I don't have my period. It's cycle day 36. Don't have my period. It also happens to be the day of the full moon, which is quite funny. And just for more information on my current cycle, I'm just looking at my chart now where I track my cervical mucus. I'm taking a break from basal body temperature tracking, which adds an extra layer to this cycle and what I want to talk about. But on cycle day 32, so 4 days ago, I had my last noticeable sign of fertile cervical fluid. So cycle day 32, still getting fertile cervical fluid, which we usually find, in the middle of the cycle. Oh, interesting. Okay. And a big shout out to my fellow PCOS babes on this one, because there are a lot of reasons that there are a lot of things that can disrupt the menstrual cycle, and PCOS is just one of them. And even beyond that, PCOS isn't the root cause. It's not like the bottom of the journey. It's, there are things that cause PCOS, that contribute to PCOS. So there's always lots of digging and exploring to do. And so the first thing I want to say is that a past version of me would have been experiencing this cycle, and it would have been so easy for me to go, oh my God, my hormones are just out of whack. Like, what's going on? Why is it like this? Why is my body doing this? Oh, my body's so stupid. And just been really frustrated, potentially even to a degree of self-hating on my body, self-loathing, and just feeling really, angry, frustrated, confused. Like, I don't know, I get this image of like I can't think of a specific Simpsons scene, but for some reason I'm picturing like Homer Simpson kicking like a piece of technology or like a toaster or something. This is so random. This is so random. But I just imagine him like kicking a piece of technology that like he thinks isn't working, or it's just not working how he wants it to, although there's nothing actually wrong with it, but like he's lashing out at it. That's the kind of image I get. So random. And I'm witnessing myself in this place that I am in now, where I'm not in this place of hating my body or being frustrated at her for having an irregular cycle and for quote unquote my period not coming on time. And I'm just in this really beautiful space of like, I get it, girl. I see what's happening and I get it. And like, I trust you to do your thing. And that is not an easy place to get to. So if you are experiencing irregular cycles, irregular periods, I'm sending my love to you, because I absolutely understand the frustration that can come with that journey. And so I also want to acknowledge from the get-go that there's always a reason for irregular cycles. It's not just your hormones acting up. It's not just your wacky body doing something wacky yet again. It's something that is driving the hormones to be imbalanced, for the hormones to not be sufficient enough to ovulate. And the way I like to look at it is that your hormones, and this is like literal science as well, your hormones are just messengers. They are messages in the form of chemicals that talk to the different cells in your body and tell them what to do. You know, estrogen communicates with so many cells in your body. So does progesterone, so does testosterone, so does cortisol, and so does the hormones from the brain that influence our menstrual cycle. LH, luteinizing hormone, and FSH, follicle stimulating hormone. So they're all just little messengers communicating with different parts of the body. And so, as the saying goes, don't shoot the messenger. There's going to be something happening beforehand in the flow of our hormones, in the cycle of these messages, that disrupts the flow, that causes either, a wrong messenger to be sent, or a messenger to be sent out too much or not enough, or the cells aren't sensitized to the messenger. There's lots of different things that can be occurring here. And as I mentioned, PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome, can be one of the, again, not one of the drivers. If you have PCOS, it's easier to experience these kind of hormonal imbalances, but it's still not the root of it. There are things like how and what you're eating, blood sugar instability, and how your insulin is functioning are two huge factors when it comes to hormone balance and experiencing hormonal symptoms. With insulin resistance being one of the root causes of PCOS. We've got our environment, we've got, the different chemicals and toxins and things that we're exposed to that we either ingest or we topically absorb through our skin, and they affect how our cells respond to hormones, or they affect the levels that our hormones are being produced, or they affect how our hormones are being metabolized as well. And then we've got our general life, and more than that, our experience of life, stress, work, social setting. Do we experience any mental ill health? If anything is happening, I guess, in the brain, but also in our external world that our brain perceives as a lack of safety, that's going to have a negative runoff effect on your hormones and your menstrual cycle. Your body isn't in this place of, it is safe to make a baby this month, therefore it is safe to ovulate, therefore it is safe to have a period. Because that's sort of the order that your brain thinks in when it comes to that. So I just wanted to acknowledge that. I'm going to be talking about my irregular cycle, acknowledging that it's not normal. This is not a normal cycle to have, but also acknowledging that it's not just my body. It's not just oh, my body's doing something weird, blah, acknowledging that there are things outside of my body and physiology within myself that contributes to this. And I really invite you to focus on all the different factors that I listed, and there's so many more that can contribute to hormone imbalance, to help heal that relationship and that connection to your body where it does, especially if, and I don't expect everyone to know the science of it, the science of endocrinology and how your hormones work. But when we don't have all the information, it is so easy to go down the route of, oh my God, my fucking body again. My fucking hormones again. Oh my God, my hormones are making me crazy. Or oh my God, what's going on with my hormones? It's so easy to blame our bodies. So I really invite you, look at the information, do a little stock take of your life right now. What's going on? What's happened in the last month or even the last 3 months? What's happened in your life in the last season that is adding to stress? Were you exposed to anything out of the ordinary? Are you working with any chemicals regularly that could be contributing to the state of health in your body? Has there been relationship stress, social stress, financial stress, toxins in your environment, discovering mold in your home or your workplace, which PS sucks. So I just want to put that out there. Now, this cycle, we're 36 days in. Why am I not stressed about where my period is or if I'm pregnant? The short answer is practicing a fertility awareness-based method that helps me confirm when I ovulate and understanding that I can only fall pregnant if I have intercourse within my fertile window. And let's do a quick recap of the fertile window. The fertile window is made up of the days before you ovulate, before the egg is released, where sperm, if present, can survive in your reproductive tract if the conditions are right. So there's a few little boxes we have to tick there, but nonetheless, that is a window before ovulation. And then we have the day of ovulation and the day after ovulation, where the egg is viable, and if sperm happen to be present at that time, it's more likely that they're going to meet and conception can occur. And that ends up being about it's going to be slightly different for everyone, but it's about a week's window in any given cycle. It's the 5 days before ovulation, and it's the day of and the day after ovulation. So 5 + 2, 7. So I'm not worried, because even though I'm not currently tracking my basal body temperatures, which would confirm ovulation, I am still closely monitoring my cervical fluid, as well as some other aspects of menstrual cycle awareness that I'll talk about a little bit more of the, just different physical feelings that we can tune into, and energetic shifts and mental and emotional stuff too. But I'll start with the cervical fluid. So I track my cervical fluid daily, diligently, because that's a part of me practicing my fertility awareness method. And I will say right now, without me taking my temperatures, I am not correctly practicing the fertility awareness method, the symptothermal method. I am not practicing it properly. It is not currently an effective form of birth control, and I'm aware of that. And that's when you rely on barrier methods or another form of reliable birth control. So I just want to put that out there. I'm a fertility awareness educator. Most of the time I rely on the symptothermal method as my natural form of birth control. Right now I am not strictly practicing that, but I am still paying attention to my cervical fluid, which is about half of the component of practicing the symptothermal method rigidly and correctly. And so because I track my cervical fluid every day, I see how it changes. And I'm also aware of the different categories of cervical mucus fluid, we can use those words interchangeably, that reflect different phases of the cycle and also reflect my estrogen levels. And so the fact that only a few days ago I had an observation of a very fertile cervical fluid, which was a watery, shiny and slippery quality. And I'm just looking at my chart again now, and the first time in my cycle that I got a sign of fertile fluid was about day 13, cycle day 13. And at that time, I was like, oh yeah, this cycle's good. Okay, cool. Yep, the fertile cervical fluid's kicking in. Great. And it's at a good time in my cycle, day 13. Cool, I can expect an average cycle. And that was not what we had. So a couple days went by, I didn't really have any cervical fluid, and then it came back again on day 16, and it's really common for me to experience the signs of ovulation around day 16. We're all going to be slightly different. And I'm like, yep, cool, okay. And then it dropped down. My cervical fluid dropped down in fertile quality, so it became more dry, more sticky. There wasn't that slippery or watery sensation. And so I thought, cool, okay, again, without doing any hormonal testing and without having my basal body temperatures, I couldn't confirm ovulation, but I had a good feeling that, okay, I think I've ovulated. I'm no longer getting fertile cervical mucus. And so that was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 days. 6 days of no fertile cervical fluid after what we call my peak day, which is the last day of fertile cervical fluid. So 6 days went on. I'm like, okay, cool. And then at about the 7th day after that peak, I started to get the fertile cervical fluid again. I was like, ooh, okay. Now, sometimes you can get that damp feeling or some watery discharge or what does appear to be a fertile quality fluid in the days leading up to your period. So like, in the 2 or 3 days or the day of your period arriving. But again, because I know about the cycle, and this is what I'm so excited to teach you all and share with you all. And I don't want to, look, it is teaching. I can't really argue with that word. It is teaching, but it's more sharing, because I really do believe that we all hold this knowledge about our menstrual cycles and how our bodies work deep, deep down. I think that there are just so many layers of conditioning, cultural conditioning, and then like lack of education, and then layers of like taboo and shame that block us from this knowledge. So I like to just see myself as like, okay, I've taken off some of those layers for myself. I've helped take layers off for the people that I work with, and I'd like to just help you take some of those layers off so you can come back to the truth of your body, and you can come back to fully knowing how she works. Anyway, that was my little side tangent there. So, menstrual cycle factoid number 702, probably. After ovulation, if you do not fall pregnant, your period will arrive within about 2 weeks, specifically within 11 to 17 days after ovulation, your period will arrive. This is what we call the luteal phase. The luteal phase is something that I talk about a lot on Instagram. It's something that I talk about a lot with my clients, because it's when people experience premenstrual syndrome and PMDD, and it's a time where the signs of hormonal imbalance can really come alive and be exacerbated. But other than pregnancy, there is no reason that you'd get a luteal phase longer than 17, 18 days. And if I was to get my period with a luteal phase of less than 11 days, that's what we would call a luteal phase defect. And that's when I would be looking into how my progesterone is functioning, just as a little tidbit for you guys. But because this was only, again, without the confirmation, I suspected I ovulated around day 16. And this was only seven days past day 16 that I was getting this fertile fluid again. And I thought, oh, okay, yeah, sometimes I get this increased wet sensation like before my period's arriving, but there's no way that my period, if it's a true period, there's no way that it's arriving 7 days after ovulation. And then the next day I had fertile fluid. The day after that I had fertile fluid. The day after that I had fertile fluid. And I had more fertile fluid for the next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 days. So at this point, I'm well past the luteal phase cutoff and I'm still getting fertile quality fluid. And I'm like, okay, I did not ovulate when I suspected that I ovulated. I am having an irregular cycle. And by that point, that takes me to day 32. So that's how long my cycle's been going for. And I'm not worried because I know I do have a propensity to PCOS. So I know that I guess we can word it as like it's easier for my hormones to become imbalanced when certain factors are in place. For me, if I'm looking at my past cycle, also remembering that the 2 cycles before your current cycle can have an influence on the current cycle that you're experiencing. So if I'm reflecting on the past few months, there has been a little bit more stress. There has been a little more, I don't want to say mental ill health, but my mental health has been more on my radar and it's been a little bit more slippery, feels like the right word, where it feels like there's more that I have to really step up to keep my mental health in check compared to other times. And with that then changes some of my eating patterns and behaviors. So lately I feel really, really solid. Not really, really solid. I feel relatively solid with food, but I absolutely see the times where I'm feeling fatigued, I'm feeling exhausted, and so I'm not cooking for myself. So I'm either over fasting, which puts a strain on my hormones, or I'm eating every 2 hours because my blood sugar is unstable. And I'm sort of kicking off that sugar addiction cycle. Also, shout out to, if you know her, you might be sick of hearing about her because she's quite big at the moment, but the Glucose Goddess on Instagram, Jessie, insert her French last name here that I cannot pronounce off the top of my head. She is a biochemist dedicated to helping us optimize our glucose levels and our blood sugar and our insulin function, and all through the diet. Not just what we eat, but also how we eat what we eat. So shout out to her, and if blood sugar is something that is on your radar or you suspect could be playing a role in your current experience of health, I highly recommend you check her out. The science that she makes so digestible and so palatable is so fascinating. So please do check that out. And double shout out, next to me I have 3 drinks, because if you know me, I always have 3 drinks next to me. And one of those drinks is cinnamon and vinegar tea. She called it a tea. I'm like, I don't really call this a tea. But it is cinnamon powder with some vinegar, with a medicinal vinegar actually that I made up with some herbal extracts in it, and hot water. And it's, let me have a sip and do a live taste test. Ooh. I gotta say I like it. But anyway, a simple little hack like that can help your blood sugar balance throughout the day when you have a drink like this before meals. So yeah, anyway, how did I get onto that? How did I get onto that? Oh yes, thinking about factors that could be contributing to this current irregular cycle for me. Yeah. So times where I've been relying on, when I am in that like sugar addiction cycle, give me the carbs, oh my God, I'm so tired, I'm so hungry, but actually am I really just bored? Is my blood sugar just really unstable at the moment, unstable? And where I am, I do see myself eating more of those like quick carbs, processed foods, you know, at clinic, organic shop down the road. Oh yeah, oh, they've got a choc hazelnut muffin. Yeah, I'll have a muffin. If my blood sugar was more stable, if my mental health was in a stronger position and my fatigue was balanced, and dare I say my hormones were balanced, I might have made a different decision. But that's okay. I definitely don't shame or put myself down for making that kind of food choice. I just don't. That's not a part of my narrative anymore. It does not compute for me to do that. And again, that's another invitation I would put out to you. How do I make this an invitation rather than just telling you to not shame yourself for what you eat? Please don't shame yourself for what you eat. Or something to that effect. Or I invite you to explore the relationship you have with shame when it comes to food, especially if diet feels like a big topic for you and a topic that has always felt a little bit tumultuous in your life. Putting that out there to you. So yeah, I was eating a little bit differently. My mental health was a bit different. And yeah, there's been some other stresses at play. So because of that, because I understand how my body works, I know what to expect of a healthy and balanced menstrual cycle. I'm like, yeah, cool, I'm not stressed. And I also know that this month pregnancy is not a possibility for me at this stage. So I'm not worried on that front. But whenever I feel not worried about an unwanted pregnancy, I think of the countless people that I know, and then also just strangers, people around the world, people in my community, you know, people that I haven't met yet. I just think of how many people don't do this cycle tracking, aren't really aware of what ovulation is. And so when their period doesn't come when they expect it to, on, you know, day 29 or day 30 of their cycle, or a date on the calendar that they expect it to arrive, because quote unquote, that's when their period usually arrives. I think of the stress and the emotion and the intensity that they feel of like, oh my God, am I pregnant? And a stress that could carry on for weeks. If they're having a really long cycle like mine and they're stressing on, you know, day 26, 27, 28, 29. And then the effect, the additional effect that stress has on the rest of their cycle, but also their next cycle, especially if their body is still trying to ovulate. Oh man, it really breaks my heart. It breaks my heart particularly because it's not complicated knowledge. And I do sense a narrative out there by individuals and also by health professionals and doctors where there's this thing of like, there's this story, it's just a made up story, that the female body is too complex, that the female body is so complex that it is beyond human comprehension. And not just any human comprehension, but it's beyond your own comprehension. Your body is beyond your own comprehension. So don't try to understand her. That is a story that I have heard. And especially in the earlier days, when I first started practicing the fertility awareness method, the symptothermal method, that's a lot of the response I got. A lot of people thought I was crazy. They're like, how could you, what? Huh? How can you know when you ovulate? You can get pregnant at any time in your cycle. But I have heard that you can't get pregnant on your period. or something like, oh my God, oh no, my hormones are just so crazy. I could never do that. Or, oh yeah, my doctor made a comment about the Billings method, or yeah, fertility awareness, like the natural method. Oh, and they just said, oh, it's far too unreliable, because there's just so many changes in our body. And it's just not the truth. It's just not the truth. And this is something I'm very passionate about. And so at this point in the podcast, I have a lot more to say. I have a lot more to share and offer to you. But at this point in the podcast, I would really love to deeply, wholeheartedly invite you to my upcoming class, masterclass, or insert another word if you're resistant to school and learning, all about ovulation, where we're going to discover her. We're going to uncover her. We're going to see her in all her truth and beauty, and we're going to realize, oh, my body is so freaking cool. Ovulation is so freaking cool. And we're going to start to untangle the stories, those stories that I mentioned of your body is too complicated to understand. You should be scared of unwanted pregnancy at every time in your cycle. You should be scared if your period doesn't arrive on the calendar date that you expect it to. We're going to untangle that. We're going to practically learn how to identify ovulation in our cycles. I won't be teaching it in a strict natural contraception way, but I'm going to teach you the basics. I'm going to teach you the theory, and I'm going to teach you the practice of it. And we're also going to tap into the lesser known qualities and what I call superpowers of ovulation. The energetic qualities, the spiritual qualities, the stuff that I feel like, man, if they try to suppress some of the physical knowledge and facts about ovulation, this energetic and spiritual stuff, they really don't want us to know. And I understand that sounds a bit vague when I say they really don't want us to know. And that's not meant to be a scare tactic. That's just something that came through. Because when we step into our full ovulatory power, I truly, truly believe we're unstoppable. And I think that is enough reason for people to be scared. Power can feel scary, especially when we don't really understand it. Or we've been taught to turn away from it, to ignore it, to suppress it. So it's going to be this masterclass, it's going to be an evening of reclaiming this lost or this forgotten or this suppressed knowledge. It's the kind of class that we should have had, that we all should have had when we first got our periods, before we got our first periods. And I'm really, really excited to share it with you all. So that masterclass is coming out on Thursday, the 11th of May. I shouldn't say coming out. It's going to be a live masterclass. It's going to be at 6:30 Australian Eastern Standard Time, 6:30 p.m. It's going to go for about an hour, and I do want to allow some room at the end for some Q&A if it's there. And I'm really excited to have this as not a one and done, like I do the live masterclass, and then if you want, you can get in on the replay, the recorded replay of it. I actually want to continuously show up for this and almost have like a rotating class that people can join, once a month. And it's the same knowledge, it's the same class with like different little spins and additions for each one. But that we're really, that it's, I don't know, this ongoing cyclical school where every month people have an opportunity to say, yes, oh my God, ovulation, I am ready to learn more. I'm ready to learn more about my body. I'm ready to learn more about my periods and my cycles and my hormones. Because I no longer want to operate in this system of like unknowing and feeling disconnected from my body. So I want to provide that recurring opportunity, and I just feel that there's going to be a real potency and magic to being there live all together. So this first masterclass, the investment is $22. I do want to make this low cost and accessible to as many people as possible. If you are a current client of mine and you would love to attend the masterclass, please let me know, because I've got a little coupon code for you. Because again, I want this to be more about accessibility, availability, affordability, because I truly believe this is knowledge that should not be hidden or kept behind a really high paywall. So yeah, let me know if you're interested. I will put a link to register in the show notes. So you just click that, you'll pay, and you'll be locked and loaded, ready to go. There will be a coupon code area. If you are an existing client of mine, just message me first to get the coupon code so you can get the discount. And I'll leave it at that. I'm so excited to see you there. I hope. I would love to see you there. And so before I jump into the tips of how you can continue to live cyclically when your menstrual cycle is irregular, I just want to acknowledge something else about not ovulating and why it's important for us to know if we are or if we aren't ovulating. Because ovulating essentially sets the baseline for our cycle. It divides our menstrual cycle in half. It distinguishes the follicular phase from the luteal phase. It distinguishes the ovulatory fertile window from the inner autumn of the luteal phase. It really helps us segment our phases and be distinct about our phases, right? And so something that I've experienced in this cycle, because I'm now at day 36, I haven't had my inner winter. I haven't had my menstrual time, which I always talk about being an inbuilt time, an inbuilt reminder for rest. I haven't had that. I haven't had my inner summer peak 2 weeks ago where I reached the peak of energy, okay, and now it's dropping. In fact, now that we're experiencing a full moon at a time where I would usually be ready to bleed, I'm feeling this real pull between the energies of because the full moon represents ovulation. We can liken it to ovulation, and I will also talk about the connection between the lunar cycle and the seasons in the All About Ovulation Masterclass. So because I haven't had my cycle, because I didn't ovulate 2 weeks ago, I'm getting to the point of nearly running on empty because I haven't had that deep rest time. And this is a really important reminder that we are blessed as people in female bodies. We are blessed to have this cycle that, when we tune in and when we listen to her, gives us all the reminders and the prompts that we need. When to slow down, when to deeply rest, when to express outward, when to turn inward, when to really strive for achieving our dreams and goals, and when we can, push down on the accelerator a little more, and then when we can back off and pump the brakes a little bit. Our cycle gives us all that information. And so without ovulation, we don't have that cycle. And then without the cycle, the risk for burnout, for exhaustion, and for just feeling out of sorts goes through the roof, because we are cyclical creatures. And when we don't have that cycle keeping us anchored, keeping us tuned in and connected, we're then reliant on other things. And if one of those other things is the culture around you and your external life, that, if I was to guess, is full of pressures, is full of demands, is full of to-do lists and errands and tasks and responsibilities, if we were to rely on that, and a lot of people do rely on that, then it's no surprise that we're all fucking exhausted. Right? It's no surprise that we're all feeling less than optimal anything less than optimal. When we feel like we're just getting by, getting through one day into the next. And sometimes you might hear that referred to as like surviving. Not thriving, we're surviving. We're just getting by. And so that's why it's really important for me to share some of my tips with you, because I know there's a lot of people out there who aren't experiencing a cycle, and without getting too intense about it, because it's easy for me to get intense about this, when we take most forms of hormonal birth control that prevent ovulation, we also need to be really aware that we are disconnecting from our cycles and that we may be more at risk for burning out easier, for experiencing more stress by missing those cyclical cues for rest. And even if you, for instance, you're taking the pill and you do take this placebo pills or pause the active pills and you do bleed, that can be a really important time for rest, but it is not, I don't want to sugarcoat it, it is not the same as a menstrual period. As a menstrual period that you would experience 2 weeks after ovulation. It all starts with ovulation. And again, that's why I'm doing a masterclass on it. So if you are taking hormonal birth control and you're not ovulating, that's just something that I want to pop on your radar, and these tips can be really, really useful for you as well, especially if you are feeling the call from nature. If you are sort of tapping into your inner witch, and I feel like, if you know, if you get that feeling, you know the feeling. I know I trust that I don't need to explain that anymore. You might be really into plant medicine. And honestly, that could just be, I feel called to say this, that could just be like, you like marijuana, you like smoking weed. Now, obviously, that is an addictive substance, and people can get addicted to anything really. But also, is that an invitation from nature? Is that your connection to nature? Is that a call? Is that an invitation to go deeper with the natural earth around you? Maybe. Maybe not. But let's say maybe. So, how to live cyclically and rhythmically when your cycle doesn't feel reliable, when you can't go with the inner seasons of your cycle and the phases of your menstrual cycle, because you're like, oh, this feels out the window. I don't know what's happening in my body. So my first tip here is if you are blessed to be able to identify like, okay, I'm having a long cycle, I'm having an irregular cycle, I know I haven't ovulated, that's great. But even if you're not getting your period when you would expect it, you can also apply these. So number one, prioritizing your 24-hour rhythm. So as females, we've got our roughly monthly menstrual cycle rhythm, our infraradian rhythm, that's what it's called in the science. But we've also got our circadian rhythm, which is our 24-hour body clock. And that's a clock that follows the work of the sun and the moon. We're awake during the day and we're asleep at night. And that's how we're wired. So I would really encourage you to focus on what you're doing when the sun is coming up or when the sun is out, and what you're doing when the sun is setting and when the sun has gone to bed. I don't know why I worded it in that way. How romantic. What a romantic way to think about the sun when she goes to bed. Because your circadian rhythm has a huge influence on your menstrual rhythm. But if we don't feel tapped into our menstrual rhythm, it's a really nice starting point to come back into. So my tips here, in the morning when you wake up, as soon as you can get some morning sunlight on your face, not through a window, Go outside and get that morning sunlight. If you incorporate it into getting your coffee in the morning, I might be okay with that. As long as it's done with intention. Even if there's a way that you can work your bedroom so that some morning sunlight does filter in and that you're not waking up in complete darkness, that would also be great. Is there any other tips I want to offer for the morning? No, get your sunlight in. I would say 10 to 20 minutes of morning sunlight on your face to help wake you up. And then at the opposite end of the day, when the sun's going down, when it's becoming nighttime, minimizing, and like shout out to us, man. Shout out to us just living in this world. Because it's hard. This is a hard one, guys. Minimizing screen time as much as possible once the sun sets. And I literally just heard people wincing at that. I literally just heard that in my brain. But oh my gosh, but it's winter now and the sun goes down so early and we're not in daylight savings anymore. I hear you. I agree. But when we don't have a good exposure to lightness and then darkness, that can really stuff around with our cycle. Not just our menstrual cycle, but just our cycle as a human. And that's where we can really start to feel out of sorts. Our sleep might take the hit for it. So reducing screen time once the sun goes down, reducing light exposure, especially fluorescent light exposure after the sun goes down. And if these are totally out of your reach, please consider getting some blue light blocking glasses. It's specifically the blue light from our screens that can suppress our melatonin levels. But we want melatonin to be high at night to help us get sleepy and have a really nice deep sleep. And we're also learning now that melatonin has a profound impact on other areas of the body, acting as an antioxidant, anti-inflammatory. I think it's being trialed for specific cancers. Like melatonin is important. And there is this deep phenomenon of like we're all suppressing our melatonin because we're all looking at our phones at night without any filter in between. So please consider getting some blue light blocking glasses. I'll put some links below of brands that I recommend. Then the next thing we can look to, number 2, is you can start to pay a little bit more attention to the moon and use the moon as an anchor. This is also something that I love recommending to perimenopausal women or postmenopausal women where they no longer have that menstrual cycle to rely on, so they don't get that natural rhythm. Or if you're perimenopausal and the cycles are starting to become shorter or longer, it's really nice to look at what the moon's doing. And I do run through the basics of this in my mini course, my mini menstrual cycle awareness course, which is perfect for beginners or if you're just wanting to brush over the basics. And podcast listener, you get a lovely discount on that. In fact, you get it for free. Please use the coupon code OhMyMenses at the checkout and you'll get direct access to that mini course and everything it entails. And I talk about the cycle phases and the seasons and the moon and the connection between the three. So yeah, that's a really nice one. And there's so many apps that you can use. There's so many great websites you can use for moon calendars. The one that I have on my iPhone at the moment is just called The Moon. It's a free version. It gives me my exact location. When I move my phone, the stars move in the background of the moon, which is quite nice. It tells me what astrological sign the moon is in. And the paid version, I think, has a calendar, so you can see like what moons are coming up, what moons have passed. And because I pulled up the app now, the moon is 99.5% full, and it's on day 15. Oh, juicy. And it's in the sign of Scorpio. Oh, juicy. Again, if you know, you know. So yeah, connecting with the lunar cycle, slowing down when the moon is waning, setting intentions under a new moon, reaching your peak with the full moon, exerting more energy leading up to the full moon, so in that waxing phase, and going with that cycle. Again, more info in my menstrual cycle awareness mini course, link in the show notes below. The other thing I want to recommend here is then connecting with the seasons. So I recommend, you can sort of see we're doing this in an order. We've got like our circadian rhythm, that's like every day. It's like the most frequent. Then we've got the lunar rhythm, the lunar calendar, which is closest to our menstrual cycles at about a monthly frequency. And then we go wider than that and we look to the seasons, which occur seasonally. So roughly every 3 months, depending on where you are. And the seasons, again, have their own energies that we can liken to our menstrual cycle phases that we can rely on and call upon to help us inform, okay, hang on, how should I be living at the moment? Which seems like a big question. And some people will be way more keen to just dive into the warm embrace of the seasons and let the seasons guide the way of their lives more than others, I imagine. And that's okay. So again, I break down the seasonal correlations with the menstrual cycle in my mini course. But some things that you can do here to connect is eat seasonally. What you're eating is really important. And eating with the seasons is a way to connect with the season that you're in, connect with the location, connect with like where you are on the planet. And it's also a way to eat a little bit more cost effectively, because when things are in season, usually they're less expensive. There was a really good website I used to use to look up what's in season based on your geographical location. I will link that below. I can't remember the name, but I will link that below if you want a quick guide and if you're wondering what is in season where I am right now. And then also gardening. Gardening is a really great way to connect with the season, because the garden is a direct reflection of like what the season is, right? Based on the foliage, based on the leaves. Are they strong and connected to their branches and bursting with colour? Or are they starting to wilt away and die a bit? Are there lots of leaves and, decomposing plant matter on the roads and the paths that you walk? Are there heaps of flowers out? Can you smell the pollen in the air? Sorry, hay fever peeps. Rose bushes, are they starting to die off? As I'm recording this, I'm looking out into my front yard now and I'm seeing like, oh yeah, the roses are going down. They're really wilting away now. There's some greenery with the leaves, but overall there's this real sense of like, okay, they're fading away now. So yeah, just getting in your garden and connecting with the garden. Awesome. And then my fourth suggestion here for living a cyclical life when your menstrual cycles are not regular or your menstrual cycles have gone away are celebrating the pagan Sabbats. So again, if we're following, I actually didn't realize that I did this when I listed out these tips that I wanted to go through, but I really have gone from like tiny cycle, bigger seasonal cycles. And now the wheel of the year is what we're looking at when we talk about the pagan Sabbats. So, when you hear things like solstice or equinox, they are really specific, really potent, cosmic, seasonal points in the year that certain divisions of paganism use to celebrate. And it's also where the traditional holidays that we celebrate now stemmed from. Although, and you may have seen my recent rant about this on Instagram, because we recently had Samhain, which is like, it's sort of the mark that, okay, the days are getting shorter now. We're going into winter. We're going into the darker days, which most people actually know as Halloween. But in the Southern Hemisphere, in Australia, where I am, we celebrate Halloween on October 31st, like the rest of the world. But Australia isn't in autumn leading into winter on October 31st. But North America is. Same thing with Christmas. Yule, make the Yuletide gay. links. I'm not covering this in depth. I'm just putting some links out there to make your brain light up in different ways. Christmas was originally the winter solstice, and Christianity decided to come and take that and make it about when a certain man was born. And again, we celebrate that December 25th in the Southern Hemisphere, when we are smack bang in summer, when we are not in the depths of winter. And that's why all the Christmas carols are about snow falling and cold and better warm up by the fireplace, gather ye round by the fire. So I feel really passionate about celebrating the wheel of the year based on where I am, because that is directly connecting with the seasons and the cycles of the planet you're on based on where you are on the planet. And it's one of my spiritual practices as well. I don't believe you need religion at all to connect to spirituality. It's not something that I push on to people. But again, if you are getting that call to nature, getting that little witchy call, the inner witch coming out, feeling connected to plant medicine, maybe you're craving to like go on more hikes or go to the beach more or to watch a sunset, if you're just feeling those little invitations from nature, I really invite you to explore the wheel of the year and the pagan Sabbaths, as well as all of these suggestions that I've made. I absolutely know I've got a lot of witchy babe friends listening. So witchy babe friends, I'm talking to you. Let's celebrate the winter solstice together this year. I would truly love that. That brings me to the end of the episode. Thank you for listening. Thank you for tuning in. I hope you got something tangible out of this. I hope you've got some reassurance and validation if you are experiencing irregular cycles, unpredictable periods. I hope you got some light bulb moments of like, holy shit, I did not know that about the body. And I hope you've got some practical ideas about how you can harness cyclical energies even when you're feeling disconnected from your own menstrual cycle. Because I really do believe that even without menstrual cycles, connecting to nature in these different ways are also a huge part of general health and adding up to a really optimal, nourished life. And that's me. Again, if you'd love to join me for my masterclass on Thursday, all about ovulation, you can join with the link below. $22 for non-clients, discount code available for current clients. You can also join my menstrual cycle mini course. A quick refresher, understand the basics of your menstrual cycle, what is happening with your hormones and how they connect to both the seasons and the lunar cycle. Any podcast listener, if you right now listening to this, you can get that for free by using the code Menses at checkout. Thank you for joining me for another episode of Oh My Menses. If you have a special request of something you'd like to hear me talk about, or you have any questions that you want to ask me, please drop me a line at hello@karindaholistics.com.au. I would like to acknowledge the land and country on which I live, work and create, that of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation. I honour their connection to land, sea, flora and fauna across this country. I pay my respects to the elders of these communities, past, present and forthcoming.